2024, 5:30. This is the ACT Committee, Administration Communication Technology. I am here with Brian McGinnis, myself, Brian Travis, and Sheila Vaccaro. This meeting has been called to order. The second agenda item is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda. Yes, Daryl.
Daryl Cook, South Walnut Street. I'd suggest making it easier for vehicles to travel in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda are discussion items. And the first discussion item 3A is communication planning agenda items. So that's generally, this is actually my agenda item that I brought up in our voting session last month. And it was in sort of response to sort of a pattern that I've been noticing where we we surface these complex topics in committee sometimes to send to Borough Council, where we really need, I think we probably all know that we need a little bit more time to digest some of the information, to have a chance to do some research, but perhaps some due diligence, and in some cases, some outreach. And the turnaround from when those topics are introduced that may have many heads to them, many layers, and really unpack them and understand them in 7 days and take it to a committee where we need to make a decision sometimes almost, it seems, too quick. So the reason I'm bringing up this discussion is to see if there's something that we can do to better, first of all, control our story. Let us manage the discussion a little bit more than it being part of the mainstream and then us being reactive to what's out there. Being a little bit more deliberate and less reactive, but to also just have a more it's the best word to say this, deliberate way of conducting meeting management, if that makes any sense to anyone. And, not that I want to slow down anything that's a hot topic and has a lot of interest, but in some cases, I feel like we're pushing too quickly. And if there's a way that we could kind of slow down the process through still executing through Robert's Rules of Order, obviously, but if there's a way to kind of allow ourselves a little bit more time for thinking about it. And then I'm reacting mostly to the proposal that we had for the Lot 10 last month. And I didn't feel that there was any way we could say yes to that proposal. And it's unfortunate because I think we lost sight of the topic.
I agree completely that we lost sight of that. I'm very much in support of doing something about affordable housing, about accessible housing, and that the way that was presented was a disaster. I think that I had some heads up about it, some awareness of it. So I was reading up and really trying to follow. I was also missing some meetings, so I was doing extra reading just to really catch up on everything. And I had come to a conclusion that I couldn't necessarily support what they were asking, even though I was being asked very much to support it, because I was sort of aware. So I'm wondering if there's a way, there's sunshine rules about us not meeting all together privately, but perhaps we set up some sort of Borough Council buddy system kind of sharing of information where we can I only come on Tuesdays for the committee meetings. So I play catch up on Wednesdays meetings. It took me a long time to figure out how to do that. But I think that there are ways that we can sort of support each other a little bit more in our awareness without slowing things down, because things move really slow for my taste. But that one was pushed.
Yeah, sometimes things require a little bit more time. I mean, we've been working on the short-term rental thing, and it's complex also, and that required more deliberation and so on and so forth, and some of these other topics that we'll see. Some of them in our long-term 10-year plan that was created in 2016, including affordable housing and including um, workforce housing. Both those topics, and now they're finally coming on board. And because they're in that plan, and even though that was a former administration, I think we have responsibility to look at that plan and see what we can implement from that plan and then continue. We'll probably need to go through the same process at some point in the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or so. So the idea here is to have a discussion and to form some recommendations that we can serve to give to council to allow us a little bit more ability to, again, control the conversation a little bit more deliberately, methodically, without seeming reactionary and sometimes even chaotic.
What if we asked Sean to regularly send out what our plan has been so that we can look at it more frequently? What our overarching goals are, to sort of keep us all, and if it's coming from you, then it can just come to all of us. Just be like, hey, this is where we're trying. Just keep repeating it. That works for me when as a step one.
We do have procedures that we have written down. It's on a one-pager. That doesn't necessarily talk about how we do meeting management, but maybe there's some things that we can be more specific about in terms of how we set agendas, how we run meetings that still fit within Robert's Rules of Order, that don't push stuff out too long. One of the things that I did notice is that we don't approve agendas. In other meetings that have had that follow Robert's rules, there's always an agenda, and the committee members have to approve the agenda before we have the meeting. I'm assuming the reason we don't do that, Sean, is because we follow standard order of business for the most part.
I can tell you how we form agendas now. They're generated by staff, and for the committees, they're generated by staff and or committee chairpersons add things to the agenda. So if there's something that a member of a committee wants to discuss at the ACT committee, Brian would let you know and you would let me know, and it would go on the agenda before the agenda deadline. And then the staff is adding items to the agenda that we know have to be transactions, things that we have to take care of, the things that have to run through council to get council's approval. So we're constantly thinking through, all right, is this something we need to get done in May or June? We're usually about 30 to 60 days ahead, trying to make sure things are sequenced so we get transactions through the governing body. We don't spend a lot of time thinking about big picture planning, organizational things as we're planning through agendas. We're very transactional in how we're thinking and how we're putting things together.
That's the sense that I got, because some of this, and I've had a couple of discussions with other council members regarding this topic. Certain agenda items follow sort of a standard operating procedure, right? With approval of an invoice from the finance committee, things like that. But when we get to these things that we get stuck on, I noticed that when we go through our agenda, and we have it on our agenda tonight for this committee and the other two, is we have other business. So are we using other business correctly in the format of Robert's Rules? In some cases, that's called new business. And for me, new business is conducted after the old business or standard business. So it's being introduced as a new topic, not a hot topic that needs to be categorized in the same way as standard business or even old business. So in a way, by categorizing it as new, we're signaling that this is a new topic. It's out there in the world. we have time to actually discuss it as a new topic, not something that we have to make a decision on right away. Is that potentially one way of, for instance, the proposal that we saw last month? Perhaps if that was moved down to the agenda, we allowed ourselves to conduct old business, standard business, and then got to new business in the committee. We had this is a new business item that I'm talking about right now. But if this was in new business, we could surface it as a new business item to be considered for discussion in the work session for council. And there we would have a chance to preview a topic before council has to make a decision on it. Is that fair?
And then there's an expectation too of things that appear in new business that the committee might direct staff, me and staff, to come back next month with information, questions, and surface, so you can have the conversation and it can be part of your ongoing business at the next meeting. So we can have a little preview instead of something appearing like the Lot 10 issue did, kind of almost.
Thank you. I think the issue with the Lot 10 was more of the timing than anything. I think to Sheila's point, it came the month before. However, it did go through the standard procedure. It was discussed in Smart Growth Committee, so people did know about it. And then it was, again, presented at the work session. I think the issue lies in when we have discussion items that they should be voted to either be moved to work session or to be tabled to the next month. Action items are different, right? Either, they're going to be voted on and moved to work session for the final vote. I think that's the issue. The other issue I want to bring up is underneath other business. I mean, other business could be considered new business. It's just semantics from that point of view. But I do think working with action items versus discussion items would have given us more time to have more of a deliberate debate. But I firmly believe that the timing was the issue with Lot 10, because they needed to get approval from us to the county to solicit that grant. The other item I want to bring up is that since these agendas have to be public, I believe, at least 3 days before, correct? Right? 3 business days before. So therefore, we wouldn't be able to amend the agenda, I don't believe, technically, because that would violate the Sunshine Law. Would that be correct?
Check.
Okay, so that would be another way in which this issue could get solved. It's, again, it's unfortunate sometimes that it seems as if we're more reactionary, but that's just the nature of the case, I believe.
I don't think that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that. And again, I think having Kristen look into that to see if we could amend agendas, which I don't believe we can, but we do have the ability to discuss in other business or new business. But another question for her would be if there were motions made in other business / new business, would they be relevant to the organization in the committee to bring them to work session or in other business during a work session or a voting session? Would those motions be allowed? And that, again, for be other business topics not on the agenda.
I just, I'm looking at parking because I'm parking, right? And under discussion items, there's the director's report, there's the garage management report. Those always happen. They're pretty consistent. And then there are the three things after, which are much more interesting. They're not the action items. It's loading zone. I brought that up. I always do. Notification process and handicap parking audit. These are much more unique. They're newer. They're not that same consistent. So for parking, it totally works to separate under discussion items, discussion items and then new topics. If that just indenting again, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is the start of a conversation. We know that we end up in this situation more than we'd like to. And if we are the people that are setting the agenda and managing the meeting, we can avoid some of these pitfalls we end up falling into. My recommendation would be to, for instance, if there was I don't know, let's just say it's a new lease that you're working on, is to include that in your new business item. It is a new item.
Can it be under discussion though? Can it be discussion new business rather than discussion regular discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I think what it does is it indicates that, hey, this is
Right.
something new. That may show up as also a new business item in the work session.
I don't want to see it fall at the end where other businesses, is there other business? No? Okay, we're done. I like that. Let's just, there might be other business that's very unusual, but most of the time, other businesses more for sort of opening it up for one last chance for somebody to say something that may or may not be very interesting.
That's how we use it, but that's not typically how Robert's Rules works.
I'm exhausted by the end of some of these meetings too. So I want to keep it under discussion items. That's another reason why I want kept up
Yeah, I look at other business again as proposals
there.
that are not on the agenda, and we need to confirm if they are allowed under the Sunshine Law.
Sean, as our parliamentarian, do you have any magical ideas on how to handle this? Or are we hunting in the right place, or?
No, this is a good conversation because I think the rules of procedure and agendas are your friend to help you manage conversation and interaction with the public. So I'm not expert on rules of procedure. I always like to check the documents and talk to the solicitor about it so that we do things right. But I don't have any advice right now.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so, okay. Well, this is our first discussion on this, and maybe we bring it up again in the next ACT committee meeting and see if we have some recommendations to give the council to smooth things out a little bit. Okay. Any comments from the public? Anybody in the room? Okay. We will move on to discussion item 3B, which is the Juneteenth holiday. That's coming up this Wednesday. Well, not this Wednesday, but Wednesday, June 19th.
So Dana caught this one. That is also the third Wednesday of June, which is our night for our business meeting. So there's three options as I see it. We could meet anyway. It's a federal holiday. We don't do that on holidays. We could double up a meeting on Tuesday night, or we could move this business meeting to the Thursday night that week on the 20th. And I ran the idea past Nicole and Patrick and bringing it here to the committee to consider what options you want to look at.
I mean, does the 17th and 18th work? Monday, Tuesday?
Maybe.
Okay.
I like Monday and Tuesday.
All in favor?
I'm fine with moving them. Yeah, I'm fine with moving them to Monday and Tuesday.
Yes.
Rio?
All in favor?
Okay. Next item is, we have one action item, which is to approve the April 2024 meeting minutes. Anybody have comments on our last meeting minutes? Okay. Any other business or any new business? Any objections?
No.
Yeah, thank you. No new business? All right. So we are adjourned at 5:51.